Ruffed grouse are one of 12 species of grouse native to North America and are one of the smaller birds in the group. They spend their entire lives in wooded areas. The ruffed grouse blends into its surroundings and is often difficult to spot, but its engine-like drumming is a characteristic sound of spring forests. This plump grouse has a cocky crest and a tail marked by a broad, dark band near the tip. Displaying males expose the black ruff of neck feathers that gives them their name. A male grouse is called a cock and a female is a hen. The plural of grouse within a species is also a grouse, although if you're referring to more than one species of grouse, for instance, the ruffed grouse and the spruce grouse, the plural would be grouses. Baby grouse are chicks or cheepers. The average lifespan of a ruffed grouse is 1 year, but if a grouse survives its first year, it's likely to live much longer, between 3 and 8 years. Although in captivity they've been known to live for as long as 11 years. Cocks are usually slightly larger than hens. The name ruffed grouse is descriptive of the long, shiny black or chocolate-covered neck feathers that are prominent on the cocks. When the cock is in full display, either in defense of his territory or showing off to an interested hen, these feathers are fluffed into a spectacular ruff, which, together with a fully fanned tail, make him look twice his normal size. The plumage of the two sexes is quite similar. Most cocks have unbroken dark bands near the end of their tails, while most hens have incomplete bands in which the color is faded or absent on the central tail feathers. This is not a rule, however, as some males have broken bands and some females have unbroken bands. Other ways to attempt to determine the sex of the bird is to measure the tail length. If the tail feathers measure over 5 7/8 of an inch, it is probably male. And if the tail feathers are under 5 1/2 inches, it's probably female. Probably. Birds that have tail feathers measuring between 5 1/2 and 5 7/8 inches can be either male or female. You can also look at the feathers on the upper side of the bird's rump, just above the central tail feathers. If there are 2 or 3 whitish spots, the bird is probably a male. Once again, probably. If it has no spots or one spot, it is probably a female. These are all ambiguous ways to try and determine the sex of a grouse. The only sure way to tell a male from a female is to compare the length of the second primary flight feather from the wingtip to the length of the central tail feathers. If these two feathers are about the same length, the bird is a hen. But if the tail feather is more than 3/8 of an inch longer than the wing feather, the bird is a cock. All of these require that you have the grouse in hand. So, unless you see a grouse doing a drumming display or with a brood of chicks, there is no way to say for certain whether that grouse is a male or a female. Ruffed grouse are chunky, medium-sized birds that weigh between 1 and 1.65 pounds and are between 16 to 20 inches long with a wingspan of 20 to 25 inches. They have two distinct color morphs, gray and brown. In the gray morph, the head, neck, and back are brownish-gray. The breast is lighter with barring, and there is a lot of white on the underside and flanks. The gray morph birds have a variegated appearance. Their throat is much lighter. The tail is the same brownish-gray with regular barring and a broad black band that is subterminal or near the end. The brown morph birds have the same color and pattern. However, the rest of the plumage is browner, giving the appearance of a more uniformly colored bird with less light plumage below and a conspicuously gray tail. All sorts of intergrades occur between the morphs. Warmer and more humid conditions favor brown morph birds, while the colder area favor gray morph. Ruffed grouse are the most widely distributed resident game bird in North America, living in all of the Canadian provinces and in 38 states. Their range in the east extends from Labrador in Canada to northern Georgia and northeastern Alabama in the United States. Their range follows the Appalachian Mountain Range down the east coast. They once occurred as far south as the Arkansas Ozark Mountains in the central part of the continent, although now they occur only in isolated pockets west of the Appalachians and south of the state's bordering the Great Lakes. Isolated populations also live in the Black Hills of South Dakota and the Turtle Mountains in North Dakota. In the mountains of the west, they range south to central Wyoming and central Utah, but apparently never reach the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, northern Arizona, and northwestern New Mexico. Ruffed grouse have become established where they were not native in both Newfoundland and Nevada by transplanting wild-trapped birds. On the Pacific coast, ruffed grouse occur on the western slopes of the Cascades and in the coastal ranges south into northwestern California and north to the Yukon River Valley in Alaska. The major portion of the ruffed grouse range and population is in regions where snow is an important part of the winter scene and consistently covers the ground from late November to late March, early April, or even later. When snow depths are sufficient, the grouse prefer to use snow roosts for protection from severe cold and predators. They will plunge full flight into a snowbank and bury themselves. They are hardy birds that thrive in severe winter conditions. The ruffed grouse grows comb-like projections off the sides of their toes in winter. These projections are believed to act as snowshoes to help the grouse to walk across the snow. Seeing the secretive ruffed grouse can be quite difficult, although it can be easy to hear them when they're drumming. To track one down, get up early in the morning and follow the sound to the drumming males. You may also encounter foraging birds simply by walking slowly and quietly through appropriate forest, or while driving along narrow forest roads. In winter, watch for ruffed grouse feeding on deciduous tree buds in the bare treetops alongside a road. Like most grouse, the ruffed grouse mainly forage on the ground, although they will fly up into trees, especially during the winter, to forage for buds or leftover fruits. They're omnivores, eating buds, leaves, berries, seeds, and insects. They can digest bitter, often toxic plants that would kill other birds. They also consume and digest large volumes of fibrous vegetation thanks to extra long paired pouches at the junction of the small and large intestines. More than any other characteristic, it is a ruffed grouse's ability to thrive on a wide range of foods that has allowed it to adapt to such a wide and varied range of habitats. In the northern part of the range, ruffed grouse depend on snow as a wintertime roost. They bury themselves at night in soft drifts that provide insulating cover. Birds in the south seek out dense stands of conifers that offer protection from chilling winds. Although habitat needs vary throughout the year, a universal requirement for ruffed grouse is early successional forest. Early successional forests, or young forests, are typically 5 to 20 years old and occur following a major disturbance, like insect damage, a timber harvest, fire, or storm damage. Grouse prefer young trees and brush for cover and food. Mixed woodlands rich in aspen seem to be particularly well liked. As important as early successional forest is to the ruffed grouse, the highest numbers of grouse are found where forests of various ages occur in close proximity, creating a mosaic of habitats and food sources. During the spring and summer, grouse will use more open areas such as forest roads, clearings, and field edges where grasses and protein-rich insects can be found. In the fall and winter, the grouse will seek out acorns, wild grapes, greenbrier berries, crab apples, and other fruits and seeds. Once these have been exhausted, they will forage on poorer quality foods such as tree buds and mountain laurel leaves. The male and female interact only during the April breeding season. Grouse cocks are polygamous and will mate with as many hens as they can attract. The male will select a drumming site, usually a log or rock wall, which is above ground level and provides a good view, but is also well protected from predators. Here he will puff up his ruff or neck feathers and fan his tail in a grand display. The drumming itself is a rapid wing-beating display that creates a low-frequency sound, starting slow and speeding up. Thump, thump. Even in the thick woods, this can be heard for a quarter of a mile or more, attracting resident hens and advertising his territory to other cocks. This is a recording of a ruffed grouse drumming. After mating, the hen is left to nest and raise the chicks as a single mother. She will scratch out a depression at the base of a tree or under a bush, line it with dry grass or leaves, and conceal it for protection. The hen's natural color pattern helps to camouflage her while nesting. She will lay 9 to 14 pink to buff-colored eggs and will start a 23-day incubation period. Ringneck pheasants or wild turkeys occasionally parasitize ruffed grouse nests. They will lay eggs in a grouse nest, leaving mama grouse to incubate the eggs and raise a mixed species brood. In late May or early June, the grouse chicks hatch. The brood immediately leaves the nest in search of protein-rich foods like insects. Grouse chicks are not much bigger than a man's thumb when they leave the nest, but are surprisingly mobile and may travel a quarter of a mile a day at 3 to 4 days old. The hen may lead her brood as far as 4 miles from the nest to a summer brood range during the chick's first 10 days of life. At 10 to 12 days, the chicks fledge, and by 6 weeks they will have well-developed plumage and look like small adult birds. In the fall, the grouse begin to disperse and will wander off to find new territory. Usually the younger birds are the ones who leave. The older birds keep their current territory. Ruffed grouse are generally solitary but will congregate near food sources if food is limited. They spend most of the daylight hours on the ground foraging and roost either in trees or snowbanks at night. Grouse are very cautious and have keen eyesight and hearing. They have exceptional camouflage and will either move well in advance of approaching danger before they're seen or crouch motionless until the danger is past, unless you come too close and they erupt with a thunderous series of wing beats that propel them out of danger. The territory of ruffed grouse varies from 6 to 40 acres depending on habitat quality and the season. Male grouse have much smaller ranges than those of females. Adult males rarely travel more than 800 feet away from their drumming logs in their entire lives. Hens have a large range of around 30 acres, and hens with broods have an even larger range to meet the food requirements for that brood. Ruffed grouse popularity as a game bird led to some of North America's earliest game management efforts. In New York, there was a closed season on ruffed grouse starting in 1708. In much of their range, ruffed grouse populations go through an 8 to 11-year cycle of increasing and decreasing numbers. The factors responsible for these periodic fluctuations remain poorly understood, but probably involve several different factors, including weather, predation, food resources, and habitat, that interact in different ways at different times. Long-term changes in ruffed grouse abundance reflect how we have treated our woodlands and forests. These birds depend on the food and cover resources produced by early succession forests. In earlier times, fires and windstorms were the ecological agents periodically renewing the forests and creating satisfactory habit for ruffed grouse and many other species of forest wildlife. Ruffed grouse are a fire-dependent species. They're also considered an umbrella species, which means that many other animals depend on the same sort of environment as the ruffed grouse, and an indicator species, which means that their health and population reflect the general health of their ecosystem. So, look around. If you're very lucky, maybe you will see or hear these magical little birds.